Hey everybody, and welcome back to my top 50 board games of all time. Today I'm continuing the countdown at number 20 to number 11, so let's get started. At number 20 I have Hanuma Koji. Now this was last year's number 17, so only a very slight fall. This is definitely my favourite two-player only board game or card game. It's a kind of a push or kind of a tug-of-war style game where you're trying to play these cards next to these geisha girls to gain their favour. Whoever gets 4 geisha girls wins, or alternatively whoever gains 11 charm points each or individually wins. It's a game where you have 4 unique actions and you can play those actions in any way you want. It has this really cool kind of I split you choose mechanism where you take a number of cards, your opponent takes what they want, and then you get what's remaining and put it on your side. You can save cards back, you can delete cards out of the game. It's definitely one of the most kind of delicately balanced games that I think I've got in my collection. Extremely elegant, but game with it's deceptively deep and nuanced, and the more you play it, when you first play it, you could probably say, it doesn't really matter what I play, it's a bit lucky. But the more you play it, you realise that there's very little luck that goes into this actually, and it's extremely clever and well designed. One that I highly recommend. It's a brilliant game, quick, but again, very deep compared to the little kind of rules overhead and the little components and stuff that goes into it. But a truly excellent game. That is Hanuma Koji. At number 19, I have a new game to the list with Shakespeare. Now, Shakespeare is a game with a really cool theme, at least in my opinion. It's a game where you are trying to recruit actors and put on shows, put them in the best costumes and build your stage up. It's pretty much like almost like an action selection style game where you have, as I said, you are accumulating actors and stuff and you are activating them by putting your kind of markers on them. That makes them exhausted for the next round, so you've got to be careful about which ones you save and which ones you use at the right time. You try to progress on these different tracks to score different points. It's a really cool game. You've got to be careful about how much kind of cards you take, because at the end of the game you've got to have enough money to pay them all. Has this also really cool mechanism where you basically bid on how many actions you're going to get for the round, and whoever bids the least gets more points and gets to go first. A really smart, tight Euro game, and I think it's rapidly going out of print, so if you like your Euros, I really recommend you snap this one up quickly before it disappears. Plays in a really nice time frame, about an hour. Very smooth and just really delightful to play. That is Shakespeare. At number 18, I have last year's number 16. So again, a very small fall for Council of Four. Now, this is a game by Simone Luciani and Daniele Tascini, who are pretty much my favourite designers at this point. Anything they put out, I really enjoy. So, spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot more games of theirs coming, yet to come. This one is probably one of the lightest games. Almost has that kind of Ticket to Ride style feel where you're collecting these cards, trying to trade them in to build your little nobles on these different tracks, all these different kind of locations, and getting bonuses in return. But the cool thing is, as you build on these different locations, as you kind of meet up the networks, you kind of synergize or combo the different rewards you get, because if you have connecting places, you trigger all the ones on that road, and you can really get powerful combinations in return and end up getting loads and loads of rewards. Alternatively, you can kind of split up where your nobles are and try to collect these different or claim different colours of cities, and once you've got all your workers in all the different colours, you get kind of point tiles as well. A little bit of luck that goes into kind of the cards you collect in order to put your nobles out, but it's very satisfying, a great engine building style feel, and relatively easy to teach. The production values from the Come On edition here is really stellar, probably overproduced, but it doesn't bother me. It looks nice, feels nice, and just a really solid light game. That is Council of Four. At number 17, I have last year's number 12 with the Voyages of Marco Polo. Now, this is another game by those designers. This is almost a worker placement style game that uses dice. You are trying to place your dice to collect resources to fulfill contracts. Alternatively, you're trying to travel around Asia to build little outposts out, which lets you kind of claim new worker placement spots and get new engine kind of building options. the game really does, it sounds pretty average and cut and paste by that description, but what makes the game set out from the pack is pretty much how smoothly it plays, but also how interesting the unique player powers are, because every player has a unique tile which gives them unique powers, and all those powers are extremely game breaking. Some of them let you choose the values of your dice faces. Some of them let you have 2 travelers on the board. Some of them let you start in Beijing, which is kind of one of the end game scoring criteria, so you get loads of points that way. Just everybody's power are really interesting. Everybody feels better than yours, but they feel the same about you. Plays nice and smoothly, pretty easy to explain, and it's just really engaging, and it just flows very nicely. That is The Voyages of Marco Polo. At number 16, I have last year's 19, so it's a climb for this one, for Istanbul. Now, the more I play this game, the more I enjoy it. It's a game by Rudiger Dawn, plays 2 to 5 players. It's a game where you have a whole grid of these different tiles with these different locations, and you are basically moving your little merchants around the board, dropping one off at a time and doing the action what's on the tile. Now you're trying to kind of collect or expand your wheelbarrow, you're trying to collect money and trying to buy new rubies, because the end game criteria is to try, and it's almost a race in fact, where you're trying to be the first to collect 5 or 6 rubies depending on the player count. The player interaction is really good, because if players land on the tiles that you want to go on, you have to pay them money. You've got to be careful about where you leave them, because as I said, when you go somewhere, you drop off one of your little servants, and when you run out of servants, you can't do anything apart from backtracking yourself and pick them back up. Just a fantastic game. It's just a real joy to play. The tension of the race is really there. Loads of different strategies to try. The expansions are excellent and really do increase the rating for me. That's Istanbul. If you like your kind of pick up and delivers, your race style games, but still have that Euro style feel, then Istanbul is definitely one to check out. At number 15, I have another new game on the list with Tois. Now, Tois is a game that I really was, I was a bit dubious on trying, because I thought it seemed a bit mechanical, it seemed a bit dry, but when I got it to the table, I just loved it. It is a real cool game that, again, uses dice. You use your dice to do lots of different actions to kind of buy new abilities and activate cards and stuff. But the cool thing about this game is almost its competitive nature. The fact that you can spend money to buy other people's dice without their permission is so engaging. It makes the game a lot more tactical and a lot less strategic, which is nice. It's a nice kind of change of pace. But again, there are some really great combinations you can get. You've got your one-off abilities. You've got your your kind of stored abilities that you can use when you want. There's this cool kind of aspect where you've got these communal kind of threats to the game, and they kind of claim areas, like in terms of area control and stuff like that, and you've got to work together to try and fight them off. But again, in an area kind of majority style where you get points for being the most to contribute to those threats. It's a relatively heavy game, but once you get your head around how it works, it plays nice and simply. Loads of variability here, especially if you have the expansion. You're never going to really play the same game twice. Loads of things to try, loads of things to explore, and I just think the replay value is off the chain with this one. That is Tois, a really sensational game. At number 14, I have another new game from this year, and it's actually a game that's very recently come out, and it was released in 2019. That is Glenmore 2 Chronicles. Now, as you can see from the name, Glenmore 2, it is a sequel to the original Glenmore, which I personally have never played. This is a tile placement game where you are collecting these different tiles on this almost track style mechanism where you can kind of move as far as you like to collect a tile, but then only the players behind you keep going until they catch up with you. So you've got to be careful about how far you want to jump ahead, because you're going to sacrifice quite a few turns to do so. It has this really cool thing, or very satisfying mechanisms, where when you place a tile, you activate all the other tiles around it to collect resources, which let you kind of trade in those resources for points. It has this cool kind of stock market mechanism where you can buy resources and sell them. You also got the scoring mechanism is interesting as well, because all the scoring criteria is based on your comparison to the person with the least. So if you have like 3 more of something than the person in the last place, you get 3 points, but as you get more and more, the multipliers go up. One of probably the most fun and satisfying games I have. I've only played this about 3 times now, and it's this high already. I have no doubt that the more I play it, I think this could quite happily break into my top 10. This Chronicles version, which is the kind of the theme of the game, comes with, I think it's 8 individual different kind of boxes that you can kind of plug into the game to expand the kind of, the gameplay, add different kind of mechanisms into the game. There's like a boat race, for example, where you race boats around not only your tableau of tiles, but other players as well. And the first to get them back gets more points, stuff like that. Just loads of different options, and it's a real joy to play this one. I really couldn't recommend it enough, and I'm so happy with it. That is Glenmore 2 Chronicles. At number 13, I have Orléans. Now, this was last year's number 9, so just slipped out of my top 10. Probably haven't played this as much as I would like to this year. It's a rock solid kind of, it's called a bag building game where you are collecting these different chits, put them into a bag and trying to pull them out and then put them on these different kind of worker placement spots to get more chits or more powerful chits, try and build your engine up by kind of making your player board a bit more efficient. And stuff like that. It's a really interesting game as you're trying to climb multiple tracks to get multiple or multipliers for endgame scoring. You're navigating around France trying to collect these different resources to fulfill contracts, which is kind of part of the expansion in the Trade and Intrigue expansion, which I think is a must-have for this game. It really is one of the coolest games I have. I absolutely adore it. So that bag building element has a little bit of luck that goes into it because, you've got you're pulling them out blindly, which determines which actions you can take. But the way you allocate them is really brain burnery. You can choose to voluntarily sacrifice the chits to kind of streamline your bag to get the actions you really want. Again, I just absolutely love it. There's really not a bad thing I can say about this game. It is truly phenomenal. That is Orléans. At number 12, I have last year's number 8. So again, a very slight fall for Teotihuacan, City of Gods. This is another game by Daniele Tascini. This one uses a rondelle as you are moving your workers, which are dice, around this rondelle, trying to kind of pull them together to get more powerful abilities. As you go around, your dice level up and get more powerful, but it means you have to feed them more food when it comes to feeding them. The idea of just collecting resources to try and contribute to this huge pyramid in the middle of the table is really interesting. Really great synergies in this one. A number of different tracks and temples you have to climb up in order to get further bonuses. Again, I just love the kind of chain reaction of things that happen in this. Just loads of different strategies to try. You've got like collecting masks and a set collection aspect. You've got building to the pyramid, as I mentioned earlier. You've got the Avenue of the Dead, which gets you points based on another different tracks and synergies. It's a pretty heavy game, pretty involved, but I like the way it plays. The expansion is really interesting as well because it adds unique player abilities, which come with, not only make you better at the game, but they also come with a bit of a hindrance as well. So you have to weigh up how you're going to strategize and use your ability to its maximum efficiency. A truly great game, and for a I think it's a 2018 release, this one has kind of remained in the forefront of people's minds and stuck around because of its quality. And again, I'll play this anytime, anywhere. That is Teotihuacan, City of Gods. And finally, for this list, my number 11 is last year's number 5 with this huge game here, Lancaster. This is the big box version, which comes with all the expansions, which I must admit I plugged them all in all times. I don't play with leaving any of the expansions out. It's a worker placement game where you have these different knights. You are placing them on these different locations, trying to collect these different nobles, which give you endgame scoring. But the interesting thing about this is when you collect these nobles, they give you voting power for the next phase of the game, which lets you manipulate the rules for the game. So, if you have more nobles, you can vote on these different laws, which can really help you and hurt others. Also, the worker placement aspect to it as well is so much more interesting than your traditional blocking people by going somewhere, because this one, all your knights or your workers have different strength values, and by allocating them, people can actually allocate more power and kick you off and steal that place from you. And once everybody's kind of settled, that's when the next phase starts. A really top tier worker placement game. There's not really much that I would recommend higher than this. I'm so surprised this doesn't get more buzz or is not talked about more than I think it should be, because it really is a top tier game. Truly excellent, and again, I'd like to see this kind of get more recognition because it is amazing. So that concludes this edition of my top 50 board games of all time. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next time as I start my top 10 games of 2019. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.